Back here on the show for the last time of today's live show, diving into the last segment on the Dallas Cowboys and what did Dak Prescott's brother say about the Eagles front office, praising them. Comes at a little bit of a surprise for a lot of people. But before I get into that and what he said exactly, one last time I want to remind you guys to please use the tip and donations link running across the ticker below with any questions, comments, or anything you want to say on the live show. If you want to do that, use the link at GSMCPodcast.net. If you can't see it and are listening to this show, the tip and donations link is GSMCPodcast.net. It makes sure your questions pop up right away here to my right, one by one on a list, and I could read them out and maybe take this conversation somewhere else, bring a different perspective to me, and we can talk about it. It's a lot more fun that way, I believe. It's a huge help for the whole network and this show, so we always thank you guys tremendously when you guys are able to do that. But going back to Dak Prescott's brother, what did he say on Twitter a few days ago? I think it was Monday now, when he posted something on X on the Eagles front office. Obviously, the day that they signed Saquon Barkley, they brought in Bryce Huff on their defensive line. Then later on, they brought back their old safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The Eagles unquestionably have been very active with their transactions on top of, or as well as the Washington Commanders just in that division. And Dak Prescott's brother, Tad Prescott, went on X after that blockbuster move, sending Saquon to the Eagles, and he said, "So, if it wasn't clear already, it is now. The Eagles have the best front office in the NFL with a hashtag, how about them Cowboys?" This all leads into a bigger topic that I want to get into with the Cowboys. But before, that post on Twitter leads it in very nicely, I think, because, people will look at it and be thinking, oh, how does this make Dak look with the team now? You have his brother now chirping and chiming in with his opinion, adding a bunch of other extra stuff to the Cowboys offseason news. Dak Prescott needs a new contract. His brother is now saying this sort of stuff. So are the Cowboys going to be more annoyed with Dak? But I think this all leads into the idea that the Cowboys and Jerry Jones started this whole offseason, and it really has turned into the just the reliable story narrative to fall back on and go back to and just think about throughout this whole offseason, probably heading into next season. When Jerry Jones said that the Cowboys were all in on this season, once somebody says all in my opinion, you can only take that as one way in regards to an NFL team. When you say you're all in, you're going to try and go win the Super Bowl now for real. I know the Cowboys always think that, but Jerry Jones hasn't ever really said, we're going all in on this season. When you say that, how could it mean anything else? That's just my perspective. But then he kind of took a step back and said that, your definition of all in could be different than my definition of all in. Already making a little bit of an excuse there, but, it is right in some aspect or another. Jerry Jones is right. He could have meant something else differently. We don't know. But a lot of people don't really need to know what you mean when you say all in. I think that's pretty clear when you say something like that. And, Tad Prescott chimes in when the Cowboys are just sitting back. They were the last team to make a signing or any sort of move in free agency. And that, on top of their division rivals, the Commanders, making the most moves out of anybody in that division. Then you have the Eagles not falling way behind them. And you even have the Giants as well, who a lot of people might think as the worst team in that division. But they brought in Brian Burns. They traded away Xavier McKinney and Saquon, but they brought in Brian Burns, John Runyon to rebuild their offensive line as well. A replacement in Devin Singletary for Saquon Barkley. He was brought in. So they have made some moves. They're also being active in the free agency market because they obviously need it to add more talent after losing two of their best players. So they're at least trying to do something about it. The Commanders haven't been great, but they're trying to do something about it with Dan Quinn, who the Cowboys are very familiar with, going to Washington from the Dallas Cowboys, and their new general manager, Adam Peters. They're not sitting back and waiting on what everybody else is going to do. They're being proactive and going out there to try and make their team better. Then you have the Eagles, as well as always, Howie Roseman, always one of the more active GMs in this whole process. He was out there, brought in Saquon, Bryce Huff, brought back CJ Gardner-Johnson. They're making moves as well. And the Cowboys, yeah, they have a great roster, but they're still sitting back and everyone's looking around just like, are you going to do something? Are you going to try and make this team better? Because it might look like they have star power, but if you look at other positions, they still need interior defensive linemen to stop the run. They got run all over by the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones had probably one of his best games in recent memory on the Cowboys because he just couldn't stop the run. They need another defensive back. If they're not going to re-sign Stephon Gilmore, you only have Trayvon Diggs coming off of an ACL injury, so you need at least another defensive back there to kind of supplement that. They need another wide receiver because there's been talks about Michael Gallup given permission to seek a trade. So if you lose him, who else do you really have on top of CeeDee Lamb? Already Michael Gallup wasn't looked at as a tremendous number 2 wide receiver, so if you lose him, how is that wide receiver room going to look? And obviously you lose Tony Pollard, so you need a running back to replace him. From talking to Cowboys fans and just seeing their reactions, I don't think Deuce Vaughn is the top candidate to be that replacement or the fan favorite to be that replacement, so they have to do something there. And they just lost on their O-line. Tyron Smith at their left tackle. One of their centers, Tyler Biadasz, he went to the Washington Commanders. So again, and Connor Williams is a free agent right now as well. So you need to do something on that offensive line to protect Dak Prescott if you're going to try and re-sign him. So it's not like they have nothing to do. They actually have a lot to do. And they finally actually did something the other day. They signed Eric Kendricks from the Los Angeles Chargers when it looked like he was going to sign with the 49ers. He goes back on that and signs with the Cowboys. So that's something that I think that was positive for them. Eric Kendricks might not be the blockbuster move that they wanted to make, but it is at least something. There are still good players out there like Devin White and Jerome Baker, among other players that they could use. It could be a little bit more expensive now with them trying to get somebody else in the door, because Devin White, I'm sure, is going to command a lot of money. Jerome Baker as well. He couldn't restructure his deal with the Dolphins, so how easy is it going to be for him to fit in the Dallas Cowboys financial plans if they still owe money to Dak potentially and re-sign him? They have Micah's extension coming down the road, CeeDee Lamb's extension coming down the road. They're not really so free spending as a lot of people might want to think. And now you look at how I started this whole segment with the comments from Dak Prescott. It might look a bit outlandish and a bit, just unnecessary for Dak's brother to say that, but in a way, could he be right? Pointing something out like this, a lot of people love to talk about the Cowboys and, say what's wrong with them and stuff like that, what they're doing wrong. A lot of times, we've seen a lot of Cowboys players say what they think the team should do, how they should fix it. Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence as well, being the two that come to mind most recently that said something. And Dak Prescott as well, talking about the culture and what he sees it being right now. He thinks it's great, but his brother thinks otherwise, and he goes out there and praises another team for them actually doing something. And I don't think, quite honestly, it's a big deal, one. But on the other hand, if people want to make it a big deal and talk about it, I don't think he's really wrong in the sense that the Cowboys haven't done anything to prove Jerry Jones right in being all in. And unfortunately for Jerry Jones, because he said something like that, it's not going to disappear anytime soon because of what he said, being all in, and because they're the Dallas Cowboys. Everyone loves to talk about them. Everyone finds any excuse to talk badly about them, criticize them in some way, they're always going to have to work extra hard for people to praise them outside of their fan base. So when you say you're going all in and you don't do anything in the off season right now to try and improve and back up those comments, and instead you're making excuses for yourself and saying, it might not have meant what you thought it meant, it makes you have that same feeling about the Cowboys, like, oh, like, here we go again. They're saying one thing, they were painted as something initially, and now, it's the same old Cowboys. They're not going to really do anything. They're not trying to improve. They're just trying to get by because they have a good team to win a good amount of regular season games, but, it's the same old story with the Cowboys. People are going to think they're just going to get to playing a really good team. Their team's not going to be improved. It's going to be the same as it always has been, and they're going to lose. It's going to be the same story. Already from the start of free agency, it's looking like that. And is it fair? Probably not. But you kind of have to lay in the bed that you make when you say, this season it's different. We're going to go all in. We're going to try. He didn't say, to be fair, that they're going to try and win a Super Bowl. We're going to try and go all the way. So I will give him that. But saying you're all in means you're all in. I don't know how many interpretations of that you can get. So I'm not saying all hope is lost for the Cowboys, that because they haven't done anything in the first 3 days that they're done, it's over. Like I mentioned before, there's still good players out there. I think they just got to stop taking so long in deciding what they want to do, what is best for them. They've missed out on some big fish already in all the running backs that went away, that really went at a low price, $8 million for a few of them annually. So they missed out on some of those guys, and I just don't think they have much more time to lose for them to really make a difference and validate those comments that Jerry Jones made. That's where I stand on it. Again, with these last topics, I would love to know what you guys think about it. Where do you guys stand on Dak Prescott's comments and how you felt about them initially reading them? How you feel now about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones saying all in? I want to know it all, so if you would, leave a comment or comment on the live show. I would always encourage that. I love knowing what you guys think on that topic, but in saying that, that is going to wrap it up for me on this show and on that last topic. As always, please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Make sure to also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok for more of this network's content. If you want to see more of me and this show's content specifically, check out the GSMC Sports Network channel on YouTube and or the Podcast Network channel on YouTube as well for YouTube shorts that come out every day, individual segment videos that you can go back and watch if you missed one segment, or just rewatch one segment if you really liked it and might have missed it, as well as entire live shows that are recorded and are also on each of those channels as well. And again, remember to tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL and football conversations with me, your host, Manny Maradiaga. Again, thanking you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to